Next, we will have I'm not sure who preferred to go first, and Senator Alexander and Senator Gates.
Governors, thanks for the opportunity to have this discussion and for your detailed consideration of the plans and discussions. These are difficult discussions, not just here today with this particular one, but if we go back in history, these have been difficult discussions each time the state has moved forward to begin a new plan. It's been a long time since we added a university in the state, really. Probably Gulf Coast University was the last one that was really done. So I thought maybe best for me to talk a little bit about the history. When I first got elected in early '98, I ran on one major issue. I wanted to help our region, our state, improve education, to give people an opportunity to be successful in our state. And I remember the first political speech I ever gave. I mean, I'm a farmer. I don't give a lot of speeches. First one I ever gave, I talked about that was my #1 priority, and it has remained that way through the almost 14 years of my service. It still is. About the time I was elected, I remember going over to a meeting at the joint use facility that's now the Polytech, and it had been around for a dozen years or so under the stewardship of USF and also Polk Community College at the time. And at the time, the entire volunteer board of USF that governed the campus resigned en masse because we did not have the first full-time faculty member on the campus after a dozen years, and we didn't have the first degree program, undergraduate degree program, that you could take and complete. And at that time, we were only offering sophomore or junior and senior classes. Not the first one that anybody had an opportunity to complete. We couldn't get USF to sign off on building this joint use facility that you've heard a little bit about. Now, after I got elected, I've started working to change that reality. And we pressed hard to get that prioritized. Now, within USF, it never prioritized within the allocation that it's given from PICO dollars that it then recommends to the Board of Governors. It never has done that, not on that building, and not since then, with the exception of the last year or so. And that's really the issue. There's a lot of talk about supporting this campus, but it really has never been supported. It's not been supported in terms of going out and getting the capital dollars. We've gotten it, but every single time it's been outside of the normal allocations. It's an extra effort. And we did get letters from the University Board of Trustees saying that this would be a good thing to do if there's extra money available. And we worked real hard, traded everything we could do to get that done. We also have had no support for additional operating dollars over the years. So we worked real hard to get that done because I heard we couldn't add programs till we had operating dollars. So we pressed hard and we got operating dollars to help provide for these programs. So over the last years, and I've now seen 2 campus administrators. The first one resigned, was replaced by the current USF president, and Dr. Goodman was hired by the current USF president to come in to develop the campus as a Polytech. That was the vision that they had. At the time, I didn't know what a Polytech was. It sounded like a good idea, made a good case for it, so off we went. So we hired Dr. Goodman, university did, He came and interviewed me. I interviewed him, and along with another candidate, and I said, well, probably the other candidate would be better, and got against it and says, no, I think this is the right one. So the university hired him, and away we went. And we started trying to develop these programs so that we could help students have opportunities in our community. Now, all I can tell you is it has been torturous at every step of the way to see these programs actually granted and to walk them through the faculty and all the different constituencies that are there. And the reality is not what's billed. The reality, it has been virtually impossible to get the program raised, to hire the faculty, to recruit the students. And when I switched over from the House of Representatives to the Senate, all of a sudden, the capital priorities for this campus went by the way. And all of a sudden, and I can't argue with the decision, Tampa decided they need a new science building. I think originally it was $120 million, ended up being reduced a bit. So all of the capital dollars were then switched over to fund that building. And it got ahead of anything on this campus. And that's been the history. Every single time we start trying to develop something, it's always, well, we need to do something else. So as I get along here, got a year to go, we had asked for 13 more degree programs. 3 were granted for approval. The number of them, I'm told, are being held until Sachs makes its determination about moving forward, which probably makes sense. And as a consequence, we don't have those things. We also had a donor in Polk County that wrote a check for $5 million to the USF Foundation for a pharmaceutical informatics program, and that donor was told, you can't have that in Lakeland. You can have it in Tampa, but you can't have it in Lakeland. I mean, I hear the discussion that somehow they're going to do a great job. I just don't believe it. And I don't believe it based on a 14-year history of fighting all these issues for all this time. So here we are today. We have over $250 million invested in this site in state and federal and local dollars. Yeah, $30 million from Polk County is an awful lot of money. It shows an awful lot of commitment to see this through. I believe the region will see it through, and we will see it successful. I believe that the plans are successful. I believe that there is a demand for polytech degrees in Florida, as there are in numerous other places. And with the right leadership, the right stewardship, we will see the kind of enrollment that has been proposed here and more. And quite frankly, as I look around the state, at a number of institutions that are at 50,000 level, 1/3 largest in the nation based on the number of students, that and all but one, which is a specialized institution, new college, have enough enrollment that they're doing reasonably well. Now, does it take time for these institutions to grow and prosper? Absolutely. And each one has its own particular pace. But the measure of success isn't being a 50,000 student institution. My hope for this particular campus is that it's never anything like that. I hope it's a 15-ish thousand Georgia Tech-like campus, focused solely on STEM and near STEM degrees, and it can help this state change our economy. And as I see that set of facts, I think there is really only one choice, and that's to grant independence and find the right steward for that independence transition to help make sure that it is done well and properly, and that the resources of the state aren't wasted, and that we develop a focused opportunity for kids that will help build our economy. Thank you for your time, and I'll be available for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Gates?
Madam Chair, Chancellor Brogan, members of the Board of Governors. When I begin to feel a little sorry for myself in Tallahassee sorting out all the yeses and nos, I can think back to this afternoon as I've seen all of you struggle with such important and difficult and troublesome issues. And now, being a senator and not being a member of the Board of Governors, I have one more reason to be thankful in my morning devotions. Let me begin, Madam Chair, by acknowledging what ought to be stated for the record. And that is something he would never say, but something I will say because it's true. And that is that there is no member of the Florida legislature in the last decade, other than J.D. Alexander, there is no one else who has had his name on more appropriations for higher education for all of the institutions around this table. Nobody has done more than J.D. Alexander. So when you hear him speak, he speaks not as a parochial representative for one part of the state, but as someone who has done the heavy lifting and carried the tough decisions for everybody around this table for more than a decade. Let me also compliment what the state university system, and particularly the University of South Florida, have already accomplished without an independent polytechnic university in the areas of science, technology, engineering, computer science, and mathematics. There's been an 18% increase in STEM baccalaureate degree programs in this state since 2005. A 31% increase in STEM graduate degrees awarded since 2005. There's been an additional $1.7 billion in research and development grants since 2005, double the amount that there was in that year. There are 103 STEM categorized degree programs being offered by the state university system today. In fact, I'm amused to see that some degree programs have been born again and in order to be more fashionable, have reinvented themselves in one way or another as STEM programs. My testimony today, Madam Chair, is not that the Florida State University system or USF is doing little or nothing in polytechnic and STEM education. Quite the contrary, as the facts show. But the facts also show that despite the gains that we have made within the traditional system, where everyone does some poly, does some STEM, Florida and the Florida State University system still are at a competitive disadvantage without a breakthrough initiative in this area. Let me see if I can demonstrate that. Among the Florida State University system graduates in the most recent reporting year, the single most prolific degree, not the group of degrees, not the department, but the single most prolific degree continues to be psychology. It's a fine field of study. My niece is studying it. My sister-in-law is studying it. They both are unemployed. 35%, Madam Chair, 35% of psychology graduates in the most recent reporting year were employed full-time. 35% had full-time jobs, not in psychology, in anything. And their starting salary was $28,872. Let's pick on my undergraduate degree, one of them, political science. One is in political science, one is in religion. Proof of my bipolarity. 30%, Madam Chair, of poli-sci graduates from the state university system are employed full-time. That means 70% were not. And their average salary in the first year, $30,824. Of all bachelor's degree graduates from the state university system in the most recent reporting year, 26%, 1 in 4, are earning a minimum wage of $7.31 an hour. Now, those are facts, and facts are stubborn things. And while a number of poly-STEM degrees is increasing within the state university system, as I indicated, as a percentage of all degrees, poly and STEM degrees are not increasing by much. Now, in the next 10 years, 60%, 60% of the growth jobs in the state of Florida will require science, technology, engineering, computer science, or mathematics skills. 17% of the degrees granted by the state university system are in those areas. There's a problem. 50%, half of the 400,000 STEM jobs expected in Florida by 2018 will be computer-related occupations requiring computer technology skills. But the number of computer-related degrees awarded by the state university system has decreased by 50%, has gone down by 50% in the last 10 years. And so today, of the 250,000 enrollees in the state university system in 2010, there are only 5,123 enrolled in computer science technology programs. There are 200,000 computer-related jobs to be filled and 5,123 students enrolled in programs that will qualify them to fill those jobs in the economy of the state of Florida. Today, the governor's office reports that there are 35,000 STEM jobs advertised by Florida businesses today and unfilled in a state where 1 million people are unemployed because the system is not producing qualified workers in the polytech areas. So what shall we do? What shall we do? Now, you're the Board of Governors. I'm a senator. There's a lot of people concerned about this issue. While we're trying to decide what to do, while we're waiting and wondering if this is the best plan, if this is the best time, there's some in the business community who have seized an opportunity and are pursuing an initiative. One Fortune 500 company is investing $100 million in a joint venture to establish a private polytech STEM university in India. An American company investing $100 million to establish a polytech university in India to prepare Indian students for jobs that Americans can't fill and don't have the education that fits the needs of an increasingly STEM-based economy. Now, that's an outsourcing problem, Madam Chair, that you can't fix with a tariff. It's a job-killing problem that you can't fix with a tax incentive. So clearly, as much as all of us have done, and all of you have done so much, the Polytech STEM economic security for our graduates issue is lapping us. It's lapping our conventional policies. Florida is behind the national average. We are behind our competitor states, and it's getting worse. And so we need a breakthrough initiative. Now, is an independent polytechnical university the answer? No, not entirely. All of us will have to do more. We will have to deploy existing resources differently to ensure that our students earn degrees, but more importantly, gain skills that will give a return on investment to the dollars that they and the moms and dads and the generous donors and the taxpayers of Florida have invested and are investing in our state university system and our community colleges. And that's why I'm working closely with leaders around this table, people in this room, to develop legislation to lash higher education and its tremendous resources and knowledge on every campus to the realities and competitive opportunities of the economy. There will be plenty of work for everybody, and President Delaney will talk about that in detail tomorrow. He gets no blame for any ideas of mine that might be controversial or cause you stomach upset, but whatever he says it makes sense, that was his idea. Oh, and President Benz's idea, of course, my president. But a polytechnical university is part of the answer, and I would argue it is an important and integral part. Why? Because it gives a laser focus on precisely and exclusively the degrees and the skills that Florida's economy needs now and needs in the decade ahead. Remember the psychology and poli-sci majors. 3/4 of them don't have full-time employment. Now turn that scoreboard upside down. 3/4 or more of the graduates of the 17 polytechnic schools in this nation are not only full-time employed, but they're full-time employed at substantially higher salaries than folks who got political science degrees like mine and psychology degrees like my niece and my sister-in-law. Now, don't we want these results for our Florida students? You know, we have a myth, and it's about time we explode it. The myth is that if you go to college and get a 4-year degree from a Florida State University, you'll get a job and a house with a white picket fence and 2.5 kids, and you'll live happily ever after. And it's not true. It's not true, because the jobs are not matching with the preparation that we're giving to our students, as I've tried to demonstrate. Now, students have to leave Florida to attend a polytechnic university. But with this plan, they can stay in Florida to prepare, and then prepared, they can stay in Florida to work. This governor has said that he's betting his job on 700,000 new jobs in 7 years. And I've told him, unless there's 700,000 educated, trained Floridians ready to compete for those jobs, we'll just have another kind of economic problem. Polytech universities, in every single case mentioned by President Genschow and also mentioned in the presentation by Dr. Goodman, attract research commercialization to the area around them. They attract business development, and with this plan, companies that are stifled by oppressive taxes and lousy weather in Illinois and New York, and stifled by a state that pays its bills with IOUs in California, will have a reason to come to Florida. A Polytech university, wherever it exists, becomes a fountainhead for technical development, and with this plan, that fountainhead could be in Central Florida. So, is this the right plan? Is this the right time? When a community realizes 1 million people in its population, then it gets the critical mass that begins to justify a university. But is this a new university? Well, of course not. It's already there. We're not going to go out tomorrow in a green field and dig and start a new university. The university is already there. It simply asks in this proposal to be allowed to flourish as an independent institution. You'll have to evaluate the business case, of course, but here's what I've learned as the head of some fairly large private and public enterprises in my life: a plan which comes from the grassroots, covered with the DNA of the women and men who themselves have to hit the milestones, have to hit the performance targets, has a far better chance to succeed than a perfect plan that's forced down from the top by people who are not really at risk for its success. And the kind of plan you have before you today, the plan developed by Dr. Goodman and his team, is a plan that comes from the grassroots, where they have their DNA all over the performance metrics that they themselves will be held accountable for. That counts for something in business. And everybody around this table who's ever signed the front side of a paycheck knows that for sure. Now, is this the right time? Each of you is a leader in your business, in your industry, in your profession. You're the heads of enterprises. I ask you this: when your product is under price pressure, as our product in higher education is, when increasingly your product is missing a fit in solving the problems and needs of your customers, in this case, the need of our graduates for a real job in the real economy, when the competition is lapping you, isn't that precisely the time in your business, in your profession, in your enterprise for a breakthrough? If we say no now to these risk takers, to these educational entrepreneurs who have put their careers literally on the line in the face of withering personal attacks, if we say no to them, these people who believe in their cause, which is a cause we all share, if we say no to them, there may never be another opportunity to say yes. Who would go through this again? As the incoming president of the Senate, I hear it said every year I hear it said now every day in Tallahassee from people sitting at this table and from the people you hire to come and talk to me, that the best investment in economic development and in the future of Florida is higher education. And like Senator Alexander, I believe that. But if that's true when you lobby me, then it's doubly true when the Polytechnic team makes its convincing and compelling case to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Gates. I think that we need to reconnect on the telephone. Is that true? I understand it may be noisy. That's why I wanted to make sure they're still... Okay. Can you go ahead and make sure that our members who are interested in calling in do have the opportunity to stay? Go ahead. Stay connected. The whole point says noisy.
At the end of the...
Is he there? I think I mentioned earlier that we had... Is the commissioner with us?
They're having him reconnect.
Okay.
That's Dr. Marshall. That's Dr. Marshall.
He's not, everybody indicated that he's on.
I may have mentioned earlier that we did receive 2 letters from 2 senators who had asked to weigh in and could not be here, and asked if their letters could be read in the record. I'm going to ask our secretary, Mikey Vesterberke, if you would take a moment and read the letters that we received from Senators Fasano and from Senator Dockery.
All right, this letter was dated November 8th.
Can you put the mic a little bit closer to your mouth, please?
This letter was dated November 8th, 2011, from Senator Mike Fasano. Dear Chancellor Brogan, please do not approve the creation of a new university in the state of Florida. This is not the time to authorize an additional university anywhere in the state. With less than 60 days to go until the start of the legislative session, during which a projected $2 billion shortfall will have to be addressed, at the very least, the fiscal impact of a new campus must be fully considered. I do not believe there has been adequate time for the fiscal issue or many other concerns to be addressed. In the past, precedent has been set when a new university is being considered. Lengthy studies are normally conducted through which questions are asked and answered. The overall cost of such a project, the ability to attract competent teachers, the ability of programs to attract students are but a few of the many concerns that must be considered before a new member of the state university system can and should be approved. I would encourage the Board of Governors to look at the critique issued by the University of South Florida main campus, through which the wisdom of making the Polytech campus an independent university is questioned. It is clear that at the very least, the dollars are not there to make this happen. It is also clear that the student base required to make the campus viable is not there either. Despite the push by a few individuals to create a separate university, it is my opinion this is being done for all the wrong reasons. Perhaps the time will come when Florida has the money and student base to make it work. However, that time is not now. I respectfully request that you not allow this project to move forward at this time. Thank you in advance for your consideration. If you have any questions or need any additional information, please do not hesitate to call on me. Signed, Mike Fasano, State Senator, District 11. And Madam Chair, the second letter, dated November 9th, 2011, is from Senator Paula Dockery as follows. Dear Chairwoman Parker, Board of Governors members, and Chancellor Brogan, I am writing regarding an issue that will have profound and lasting effects on the Senate district I represent. It is my responsibility to speak on behalf of my constituents who have been left out of the fast-moving process of changing the direction of the University of South Florida Polytechnic. I'd like to provide a little history. The entire Polk County community and its elected representation have been completely and enthusiastically supportive of developing, constructing, and nurturing the Polytechnic under the USF umbrella. To that end, years ago, my role was to work toward getting an access road to the new campus on land donated by the Williams Company. After several meetings, representatives from City of Lakeland, Polk County, Florida Department of Transportation District 1, and attorneys from Gray Robinson, representing the Williams Company, came to an agreement that allowed that road to be built. I am happy to report that the road is near completion. So please understand that there has been a strong level of involvement and support from the entire community over many years. Monies have been raised from the City of Lakeland, Polk County, and other quasi-government groups and private donors under the belief that the campus would grow and prosper under the USF umbrella, a highly respected research university. The current administration asked for and received financial autonomy from USF through the legislative process in 2008, allowing them, quote, to control their own destiny, close quote. Throughout this process, USF President Judy Genshaft, the USF faculty, and the USF students have been very supportive partners. When we received the news that the $35 million PICO appropriation had not been vetoed, again, a very cohesive Polk County and USF community celebrated. We were on our way to building a potentially world-class polytechnic with the help of USF. The sudden call for independence from USF took many of us by complete surprise and quickly divided the unity of the supporters which had been built up in recent years. What still unites us is the desire for our polytechnic dream to succeed. What divides us is how to best accomplish that. Under the current scenario, there is little to no risk of failure. The construction takes place on the new campus. The 1,300 current students continue their classes at the Polk State College/USF Polytechnic Joint Use Campus. The administration starts recruiting students, programs, and faculty in earnest, and all this is accomplished under USF, an accredited emphasis institution. The students will be able to graduate with a meaningful degree, faculty will be invested in the new program, and a large donor base of USF alumni can help to support the fledgling campus in its infancy. With push for independence from a small but well-organized group, there is great fear that this action is extraordinarily premature. Consider what is being asked: a 12th independent university to be formed when the funding has not been secured for Phase 1, let alone Phase 2 and build-out. Campus has no buildings. Student enrollment is 1,300, and many of them want to stay with USF. Faculty has not been hired for true polytechnic programs. Polytechnic programs have not been developed. Accreditation has been placed on hold and will take several years to achieve without the USF ties, and students will lose all benefits of being connected to USF, an established university. I have heard from many of you that politics has certainly entered into the pace and tone of this issue, and that is extremely disheartening. The Board of Governors was designed so that politics could be as removed as possible from educational policy, and so the BOG's members would not be treated punitively for votes or decisions. Please make your decision based only on merit and not on political considerations, threats, intimidations, and gamesmanship. Also consider the wide variety of stakeholders who have almost no political power but have, for numerous reasons, voiced opposition to moving forward at this time: students, faculty, alumni, and members of the community. The decisions you make will significantly affect their daily lives and their educational hopes and dreams. Over the past week, I have had the opportunity to chat briefly with some of you and was left with the distinct impression that most of you believe this process has become mired in politics and the merits of the request do not justify the action for independence at this time. Please follow your hearts and minds and do what the Board of Governors was set up to do. Accurate financial data and a carefully thought-out vision for Florida's higher education system should be driving this process. I am of the opinion the rush for independence, now in caps, is being done for all the wrong reasons. I look forward to the day when our great state has the money and other necessary components to make this work. That time is not now. Those who will be most impacted The students, our customers, and the faculty, our employees, have strongly stated their views despite efforts to silence them. Please listen to them. At a minimum, a full and independent audit of all expenses and income should be conducted, as well as an independent study of the business plan in comparison to that audit before you proceed. In the best interest of the Polytech's long-term success, I respectfully request that you do not proceed with independence at this time. Warm regards, signed Paula Dockery, State Senator, 15th District. And that concludes the letter, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mikey. Next up, we actually have Dr. Yost, or Governor Yost, if you would come, and you can do it from your seat, or if you'd like to go to the podium, whatever's better for you. I'd ask if you would speak with your constituents so that their views could be heard regarding this issue, and if you would just present it in your own way.
So I have met with, talked with, and received numerous emails and mail from many faculty members at USF Polytechnic. And so I'd like to kind of summarize their responses as best I can. So first, let's start with USF Polytechnic has its own faculty senate, as each university and all the branch campuses do. They held a special meeting about a week ago, and they reached the following position, that they requested that the Board of Governors vote at this time to deny a separation of USF Polytechnic from the USF system. They point out they are strong supporters of USF and of the Polytechnic, but they're opposed to the speed and lack of objective analysis with which this decision is being made. So that's on behalf of the faculty at USF Polytechnic, and that was unanimous, but for one abstention. In USF, there's also a faculty council for the entire system, and so let me just quote a line out of that. Out of their response: under the principles of shared governance, the faculty of the university has a primary role in decision making on all academic issues, and I feel very, very strongly that that is true and should be true. No major restructuring of the university should take place without full and adequate consultation with the appropriate academic governance bodies. No such consultation took place in relation to the proposal to separate USF Polytechnic from this system. And I think that is a serious flaw, that the faculty and the shared governance system has not been involved and feels very left out of this discussion. The USF Polytechnic faculty were surveyed by UFF, and let me just give you a couple of numbers out of that survey. About half the faculty on campus responded. 80% did not support the current initiative for independence. 50% said they would take advantage of an option to transfer to another USF campus if it went independent. And 95%, that's all but two of them, said they were not consulted regarding independence. That's pretty scary. So we heard about plans coming from the grassroots, and I would argue the grassroots are faculty and staff and students, and the answer certainly on the faculty and staff side is these are not plans from the grassroots. A few comments from the survey responses. Faculty have not been asked to participate in the discussions. At our campus update meetings, we've been specifically told not to offer input. The first time we heard about a trimester calendar, for instance, was in the broadcast of the September BOG meeting. I have seen the morale of this place plummet as faculty and students feel their voice does not matter. This has changed from being a wonderful place to work to being a sad and dysfunctional campus. There is a craziness and an atmosphere of distrust. This place has the potential to be a great cutting-edge university. A common theme, a lot of people very enthusiastic about the Polytechnic model. Right now, we are on a path of making ourselves a small tech school that will be a minor player. Some other comments from people I've met with or talked to. The faculty has never been included in strategic planning. There is a fear of retaliation if we, the faculty, articulate concerns about the direction of the institution. Many of the faculty are concerned about the loss of shared resources from the USF system, library resources, sponsored research, things that they rely upon, particularly as they move to being a polytechnic that will be doing more research, things that they, taking for granted now provided through the USF system. In the case of independence, they would lose those. Many, probably most, are concerned about the loss of SACS accreditation during a transition time. I tried to be balanced, to look for faculty members that were in support of independence, and the one and really only comment that I received in support of independence favored it due to the agility it would provide, permitting curriculum to be modified more rapidly. I would argue there's probably other ways to accomplish that besides independence. So summarize, just two general comments. This one's anonymous. I do not know who it came from, but I liked it. The plain and simple fact is that the campus is not ready. Perhaps if the campus were allowed to develop an identity as a polytechnic, then a push for independence may make sense in 5 or 10 years. But why now, especially given the current state of the economy? And then finally, we heard earlier about Preston Mercer, who was the CEO of USF Lakeland previously up through 2006. So let me give you a quote from him. And here's somebody who clearly was a champion and remains a champion of USF Lakeland and USF Polytechnic. He said, "I would encourage the Board of Governors to slow the pace of this project by moving any discussion of separation to some distant time after the process of rebranding as a polytechnic, after accreditation, after system integration, and after campus infrastructure building have gelled. Otherwise, the current feeling of chaos by the faculty, the students, and the staff, resulting from a perceived disenfranchisement and a feeling of not having opinions valued, will grow, putting the future success of the campus in jeopardy." Those are pretty powerful words from a lot of faculty. So that would be my summary of the tenor of the faculty.
Thank you, Governor Yost. Governor Long?
Thank you, Chair Parker. I see this report to do one of two things. First off, I must represent my constituency of students, but also think as a board member of what's best for the state university system. So I'll start off with talking about what's best for the state university system very briefly. I've met with pretty much everyone involved in this issue: Senator Alexander, Marshall Goodman, Judy Ginshaft, Jean Engel, John Ramil, anyone involved in this issue, and I've been deeply disappointed by the level of politics that play into this decision, and I know students feel the exact same way, and I think all the students behind me will echo that same sentiment. So I felt it very important to bring to the light one important matter. When I met with J.D. Alexander, I have one very important question for him, and I said, "J.D., what happens if this doesn't go through?" Because that's our concern here, that's our fear. Will the 11 universities, or will the University of South Florida be hurt by our decision here today? And he told me a story about an issue he had earlier in his career in the legislature, where he couldn't find support for an issue he was trying to push. And he said he quit working for higher education. And when he was up there today, he said he doesn't just represent his district, he said he represents higher education. And that being said, I think I speak for all the students here today when I say that I do not feel very well represented by JD and his comments, and him leveling his power in the legislature to tell to us today that he is the one man who's helped support higher education, when he told me personally that he would quit fighting for higher education if he didn't get what he wanted on this issue. And JD, with all due respect, I do value your input on this issue, and I do appreciate all the work you've done, but I felt it very, very important to bring that conversation to light. I'm now moving on to the student perspective. The University of South Florida Polytechnic students have spoken very, very loudly on this issue, as well as the other students within the system. The students at the Sarasota Manatee campus, the students at the St. Pete campus, and the students at the Tampa campus have all spoken through their student senates and through their student governments. Every single student senate has passed a resolution opposing this separation. The students today are all wearing shirts that say, "We are united as one." Let me remind you, our board priorities and our values, and many of the things we mentioned in discussions today: unity, collaboration, cooperation. United as one, that's what the students want. I believe that's what this board wants. And I just want to make sure that that concept and those values are maintained in these discussions. I presented survey results at the September meeting, polling the students at the Polytechnic campus. Another survey was conducted. The question was, are you in agreement with USF Polytechnic becoming an independent university? 61.93% of those students said no, flat out. There's no way, we do not want that. Another 14.72% of those students said not at this time. Second question was asked, if USF Polytechnic were to become an independent university, would you continue to attend this university? Roughly 47% said no. I think that's very telling of how the students feel on this issue if they're willing to say that we will transfer out of this school, potentially transfer out of this school if we are able to because of this issue. Another 22% said they weren't sure and they were on the fence about it. In addition, I tried to put myself in the shoes of potential students that would be going to this university in the future if it were separated. You're talking about a university that has no recognition, no degree value if it were to become a completely separate university. Personally, speaking from my perspective as a student coming out of high school, a lot of the talks are about job creation and making sure that you have the ability to find employment once you graduate after your investment in your education. I would not go. I think the Polytechnic idea is fantastic. I think it's a wonderful concept. I don't think anyone around this table disagrees that we need further STEM education. The students and myself do not agree with the separation of the USF Polytechnic as the solution to this issue. I actually talked to some high school students about this as well to try and have a more practical standpoint, and they echoed the same concerns. I met with a group of high school students in Lakewood Ranch, and they all said, no. I mean, we're investing in our education. We're not going to go to a school without a name. The students at USF Polytechnic's main concern is degree value. The current students here now, what do they do if they've invested in their education currently? They put a lot of the time, money, and effort into this education, and they don't get a degree with a USF name. No one has guaranteed me or these students behind us that they will get a USF degree if this separation occurs. There are a lot of questions about accreditation that have not been answered. And I don't think we can make a decision until those questions are answered and those students know whether or not they're going to get a degree that says USF on it. And just wrapping up, I want to quote the last paragraph of a letter that the president of the student body at the Tampa campus wrote, who represents all 47,000 students in the state. Thus, you must consider these documents and resolutions as an articulation of the voices of over 47,000 students, reaffirming that we believe in the USF system. That we believe the USF Polytechnic is a vital member of the USF system and should continue to be of our system, and that the students of the USF system are collectively, now and forever, will be united as one. And at this time, I'd like to recognize the students who drove almost 4 hours, missed class today, to be here. Thank you, Chair Parker.
Thank you, Governor Long. We're now opening the floor for discussion. I indicated that Governor Temple had requested if he could start the conversation. So, John, it's on you if you want to go to the podium or at your seat.
I'll try from here. First of all, I want to say I wish I would be as articulate as our faculty representative and our student representative. Maybe I got to go back and get a PhD or something. First thing I was going to talk about is, as you know, I wrote 2 letters to Chancellor Brogan. I think you all have them. I have extra copies here if you need it. And I have extra copies, I guess, if other people in the audience want to read it, but I think they're pretty well known. The first one, I was going to talk about the second letter first. I got preempted, Norm. But I'm just going to say again that it's very clear in our strategic plan that we would not have a 10th university at this time. And I think you should take that into consideration, even though you decided to go ahead and hear this. We shouldn't have heard it last time for that reason, but anyway, my recollection wasn't as good as it was until after the meeting. I think you should take that into consideration. I have that letter here, and I have the minutes of the 2007 Board of Governors meeting where we made that determination. It's very clear in the minutes, and the board was unanimous. And remember, a lot of us spent a lot of our personal money on the strategic plan and on the Pappas report, and you should take that into consideration. Second, and again, I got copies of this if you want it, but it's been acknowledged. It's for real. The second thing is the first letter, which basically I want to focus on the comment I made that this whole process is out of control. And I'm going to focus on costs. It happens to be my MBA and my math and physics coming back to me, and my business experience. And again, I've got copies of that letter. If anybody wants them, be happy to hand them out. First of all, I went and got the costs of this facility. Now, I'm talking about capital costs. I'm not talking about, the continuing education costs, the professors and all that stuff. And I recognize this school's been going on for a long time. And the costs have changed 4 times in the last 2 years. These are the costs of the building, the cost of the site work. Doesn't even count all the off-site costs. And it's changed 4 times in 2 years. This is on the first building, to build one building. It started out at 57,000 square feet, $300 a square foot, which is to me appalling as a developer. Hard costs. The gross was 85,000 square feet, not a very efficient building, $200 a square foot. It's gone to from 57,000 square feet to 86,000 square feet. Latest estimate, who knows what it is now? Might even be bigger. Keeps changing. It's a moving target. It's a 50% increase. The cost now on a net square footage basis is $660 a square foot. Throw up. Gross has doubled to 160,000 square feet. It's a 100% increase. $350 bucks a square foot. So the hard cost has gone from a little over 35 million to $80 million. The other costs have gone from 5.1 million to 17.3 million dollars, a 3-fold increase. Now the fees in there have gone from $3.6 million to $13.4 million, a 4-fold increase. And I'll get to why. It's probably primarily the architect, but we can't get that information. All costs have gone from $40 million to almost $100 million. So if I use their numbers, and they continue, meaning Polytechnic produce numbers, and they continue to err on the same degree of magnitude, by 2014, 2015, we'll have 2,200 students from what, 800? Capital costs of $185.5 million, and I'm using their numbers. That's $8 million a student. That makes our 500,000 TICO look kind of small. If the facilities cost, again, if they continue to grow, their $338 million number on page 33, which is what they're projecting for, these are now costs. These aren't operating costs. Go to $338 million. If I use the same logic that they're clearly on, inaccuracy that they're clearly on, inability to project that they're clearly on, it goes to $800 million, plus $200 million a year of operating costs. This is a billion-dollar decision here. That's kind of what I said in my own mind when it came up. That's why I was in shock when this thing was even presented. So, conclusion, I have no confidence in the materials that they've given. Thank God they didn't go through and make their plan presentation. But I wouldn't even ask them any questions. This document is, excuse me, a piece of crap. Let me talk about the site plan, because that's kind of been my background and my business. I've been a large-scale community developer for 40-some years. I've developed everything from regional shopping centers to 10,000-acre Weston community to 100,000-acre Rancho California, and on and on and on. Never done a campus, but I've done communities. And this is a community. It happens to be an educational community. It's a college community. I don't know what happened, but you know, we had a plan that looked pretty reasonable back in 2006, done by some people I know, you know, Reynolds, Smith and Hills. I assume they had experience, but I don't know if that's really been vetted. And now we've got a plan that in my vision is out of control. My view is out of control. And let me just give you a little history. You know, one of my first jobs when I was at Kaiser Aluminum, we were partners in a big project in Orange County south of Disneyland, right where the Garden Grove and Santa Ana freeways come together. It was a major new mixed-use community, mostly anchored around a regional mall, big regional mall with office buildings and all that sort of thing. The developer, and I came in after it had started, the developer had hired I.M. Pei, who's a very, very famous, world-renowned architect. But I.M. Pei wanted to do one of everything. He wanted to have his office building, he wanted to have his shopping center, and so anyway, make a long story short, we got the developer out of there. We had to continue, unfortunately, living with Pei. The thing was way over budget. We struggled to get it under control. And it was an open-air regional mall, if you can envision that. I don't know how many years it was later, 5 years after we'd sold it and we're gone. They had to go back and put a roof on the thing. So, while I have great respect for world-class architects, they're usually not very practical. I have checked out the architect that's been hired, Calatrava. If you go to his website, I can't find any evidence where he's done a master plan on a campus community or on a university community. He's built beautiful bridges. He's built beautiful structures. But what is he doing with this project? I don't see any place for industrial parks. I mean, this is supposed to be an I-4 corridor campus with integrated electronics and all that all the kind of offshoots that we have in a lot of our campuses. And I know we have one here because I did it. So his reputation is, this is from very reliable sources, is that he's always been over budget on every project he's ever done. Specifically, the Milwaukee Art Museum, which was 50% over cost budget. He was recently let go from being over budget at the Denver airport expansion. And why are we using somebody from Spain when we need jobs here in the United States of America? Okay, opinions and facts, a lot of which you've heard, but I'll go through them quickly. Florida Council of 100 is weighed in here. They didn't say no, but if you read it, with all the questions they asked and the questions that hadn't been answered, no, not now. Sufficient research, sufficient studies haven't been done. The USF Board of Trustees that you've heard from today said no. And I'll come back to that in a minute when we talk about accreditation, because I know, Judy, that's very important to you, and I haven't forgot about that. It's in here. Alumni have said no. The faculty have said no. Students have said no. I mean, the letters from the communities, the opinions from the newspapers, I mean, this is it. And the people in support are like that big. State senators have said no. You've got those documents. Betty Reed, who's the ranking member of the House Appropriations, I guess, she wrote and weighed in and said no. And I understand we've only graduated one student so far in engineering. I heard that. And I also understand that the FTE, I've been told that the FTE is like 2 or 3 times our average in the community. So how can we rely on these representations? I will have to say this, and this is tough for me because I've been a developer and I fought lots of battles over the years, and a lot of those battles were with the press because they traditionally report things inaccurately. They do run smear campaigns, and I know they've been accused of doing that here. And I can say this because I don't have anything going through the system at the moment. But in my view of this, in reading this and talking to reporters and having reporters call me, they have really done a good job. I don't think they've done as thorough a job as they should have, but I think if they did, these facts would be worse. So I want to just compliment them that this has been pretty accurately reported. And anyway, risks. State has no money. We can't even fix our roofs. And we've heard that today. You heard it from me before, but I got to say it again. We don't have any PICO money. The costs, again, we're talking about $1 billion facility here over a period of time. It's just out of control. The gifts and some of the money that they are counting on getting, we already know from Lakeland that the $5 million gift is on hold, pending analysis of the independent issues here. Lakeland may want their $5 million back because we didn't meet conditions. Risk. Okay, let me talk about governance, because I think that's as much or more important issue here. And again, I brought our duties and responsibilities, and I have extra copies if you would like them. But sometimes we forget that the board shall operate, regulate, control, and be fully responsible for the management of the whole university system. That's our job. And I was shocked when John called me to say thank you for writing that letter about this project being out of control. This is the chairman of the University of South Florida. And I said, well, what is the problem? Well, the problem is that this thing is controlled, and I don't know if you know this, by this chapter, what is it? 1004.345. I've got copies of this if you want to see it. This is outrageous. The legislature basically is going around us and running this university. Now, I don't want to get another, we already got in a fight with them over tuition. I don't, I've talked to the chancellor about this, we don't want another fight. But in my opinion, my legal opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've had 40-some years in this business, in my opinion, so therefore the University of South Florida hadn't done anything. They don't have control of this. There's insubordination going on here. They can't answer my questions. They can't do an audit. They can't ask for accountability of this money. So we've got to get control of this, and I think one of the things this board should do is order, I guess maybe in contrast to this 100.345, that, look, we trumped that. You go take this back, get control of it, and come back to us, because this thing is all screwed up. From a plan point of view, from a cost point of view, every other point of view here. And I, as one governor, want to see a report back here very soon as to what is going on, who the planner is, what the contracts were. This is a new thing for us. We've never had the potential of a new university coming out of our system, and we need to get back in charge. We are in charge, and I don't care what this says. We're in charge, or we should be in charge, and we're relinquishing our responsibilities if we don't take this back as control. Also on the governance issue, there was an article, I guess it was in the Ledger, and it was also in the Gainesville paper, where they'd interviewed Bob Graham, who, Senator Graham started this whole process of the Board of Governors. And let me quote from this, because he did call me and thank me for my comments. One of the reasons I was interested in establishing a constitutional Board of Governors was to build a strong shield against the politicizing of the universities. If proponents somehow convince the Board of Governors there should be a 12th university, that's one thing. But if they cannot, they shouldn't bypass the Constitution Board of Governors. So he set this up so that we wouldn't be interfered and we wouldn't be influenced by over legislation, I guess I'd call it that. Again, I think our responsibility, as outlined in Chapter 9 or whatever it is, trumps whatever this is. And if it doesn't, we should sit down with the legislature and work this out and set it up so that it doesn't. I mean, we shouldn't allocate $20 million to a building in our budget and then have it raised to $35 million because somebody else, because they got cost overruns they haven't told us about, and somebody else is pushing this thing through. Let me get to accreditation, because I do have experience in this as well. As you know, I started out being the first chairman of the board of FAU, Board of Trustees. One of the first things we did, we were going through the accreditation process. And the gentleman came down, and he wanted to understand governance, and he wanted to meet with me privately. And he wanted to ask me questions. His first question was there any undue influence in the way this university's being run or been told to run from the top down, meaning the legislature, the president of the university. Is there any undue influence? And this is their standard question. I would not like to be in President Ginsaff's shoes or our distinguished chairman of the FAU Board of Trustees. Huh? Yeah, John Ramey. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, Governor Brogan, or in your shoes, Chairman Parker, or anybody who has had their feet put to the fire, had the gun put to their head, or been unduly influenced in this process, because you could hurt the whole accreditation of not just the process. I know we're in a process now to go through it with Polytech, and that was approved by University of South Florida, but I wouldn't want to go through it. I know we're held up, and we're held up because there's a lot of questions because of the publicity and the comments and what's gone on here. And I think we got to be very careful. I think we need to get this thing behind us, and so that's my governor's process. Kind of in closing, it took, and we kind of all know this from the documents, but I haven't heard it reiterated again. It took a a full year of study, careful study, to spin off a campus that was 140 miles from this site, which is what, 30 miles away? It took a whole year of study. It took a very careful consideration. I was shocked at our last Board of Governors meeting that all at once somebody's pushing this to be an independent university. And so the answer is really no, no, not now. I'd like to make one other comment, and I know we've heard from two very senior and very distinguished senators, and I can tell you, if we had tuition freedom, which I think we should have, but we lost that case and we settled it, which I think was the right thing to do. If we had tuition freedom, so maybe we should get engineers no tuition, or give them a loan, that if they don't finish out as an engineer, we get it back. If you want to charge poli-sci majors and psych majors double tuition, great. I'm all for that. That's probably a way to solve our engineering problem. The last thing I'd say, if we had lump sum funding, we wouldn't have the kind of problems that they refer to. That's what we need. We need to be able to allocate these resources. So if there's anything, senators, that you could really help us with, it would be those two issues. And you would see more STEM education with our existing engineering schools. I'm not objecting to there being a STEM as part of USF, but I think I think to go out and spend $1 billion to start a whole new university because we're saying we don't have enough STEMs. We don't have enough students enrolling in engineering and the sciences. That's our problem. So with that, I spoke my piece. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Governor Temple.
One last thing. This economy's not going to turn around, you know. Look, I'm in business for 44 years. This economy's not going to turn around for at least 3 years. And so if we start spending a whole bunch of money on a new campus, you know where it's going to come from. It's going to come from all the other universities. And we don't want to destroy what we have. That's, I think, a big part of our job is to make sure we keep what we have. What we have is really excellent, and we need to keep it.
Governor Temple, you finished?
I am done. I'm probably cooked.